Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club and our second video here of building the Quest Harpoon AGM. You'll notice, so in the intervening time, I've cut out the marking template, which was here, which is a different kind of design, but it's fine. I wanted to show you this before we actually started doing anything. The Estes ones usually have you mark both sides of the fin, but this, or both sides of the launch tube anyway, to show where the fins and the launch lug are going to be. But this only has one marking arrow. And that shouldn't be a huge deal so long as I get the tube into the door jamb properly. It shouldn't be a problem, but it is a little on the unusual side, so worth pointing out. Now, first, before we start doing all that stuff, and I'm going to take a little break here and draw the lines and then get ready to start gluing the fins on later. But before we do that, we're going to put the motor mount into the rocket tube. Now, remember, this one has our anchor for our shock cord in the motor mount itself, which is a good way of doing things, but it does require some minor changes. Also note that this is like really in there because I put a bit of glue on it. So I test fit this already, but again, I just want to make sure it fits. It's actually quite loose, which is surprising. But be that as it may, I need to, of course, thread the tube in here, or not the tube, the shock cord through the tube before I start gluing. Well, I guess I don't really need to do that. I can put the glue inside first. And this is another one of those where I need to get my dowel and my scrap so I can put a little bit of glue on the inside before I worry too much about all the other stuff. So I'll actually do that first. I'm probably going to get a little bit of glue onto the shock cord, but that's kind of unavoidable. Again, I'm eyeballing this because I know essentially how big the motor mount is from many projects where this is a step. But if you are less experienced, then you probably want to draw a little mark on your piece of scrap here to show you how far in you need to get this. So in this case, we want the yellow bit flush with the end, and I've actually, just eyeballing it here. Yep, I've got it basically where I want. I'm also going to put a bit of glue interior here, just about somewhere around 1/4 of an inch inside. Now, you're not going to be able to see me do this because I don't have enough space because I got to hold this up vertically, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to thread the shock cord through vertically with a minimum of it touching the glue, because I prefer not to get that gluey at all. Now, I have repeatedly hit the glue on the way in, but honestly, that's kind of unavoidable. So there we go. It's threaded in. It's coming out the other end. I'm going to put this in here like so, and I want the yellow tube lined up as best I can. So I'm just going to kind of tap it with my finger to make sure that it's flush. Now, again, you won't be able to see this, but it's set in there. I am going to also put a glue fillet, because you can see where my glue was isn't quite in the right spot. So I want that stronger, so I'm going to end up putting a glue fillet. Ooh, and it's kind of sinking a little bit because this is a rather loose fit. So I'm going to let that sit for a bit, before I mess with it too much. In fact, considering how loose that was, I'm going to let it sit for a while before I even start extending the lines using the door jamb. So in the meantime, the fins are all done. They're ready to be attached. We've got 3 sets. And while this is setting a little bit, the plan here is that I am going to put the back fin on first because that one is the biggest, among other things. But it's going to be the line that I'm drawing is going to be most accurate where I've started it. So it's going to be most accurate down here. So I want to get that one as accurate as I can. And then obviously the other fins are going to be in line with it too. So they need to be on the line as well. However, it's a whole lot easier to try to line up to see if you did it right, to kind of adjust the second one in line with the first. And if you do it right, you won't be able to see the second one. If you can see they're, like akimbo or whatever, not adjacent. No, that's not right. If they're not in line, there we go. It'll be pretty obvious. So it's actually fairly easy to get the fins lined up once you've got the first one in, but you want to be very accurate with that first fin. So in any event, I'm going to pause things here for a moment. I'm going to let the glue set on the motor mount. I'm going to put in the fillet on the interior of the motor mount, and I'm going to extend the line. So I will be back momentarily. All right, so I have applied my fillet to the rear, which you can see here. Now, this instructions say you should use your finger, but I can't get my finger in there. So if you're an adult, that's going to be a pretty tight fit. So if you have little kid fingers, great, but I couldn't do it. So I ended up holding the glue vertically like this and kind of applying it into the crevice like this and using gravity to pull it down and essentially diagonally from where I was into the crack. And that works pretty well except for where the hook is, and I can't get any in there. So what I ended up doing was using my dowel to paint from where I had the glue to where I didn't. So that's taken care of. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to mark some lines on this, because the fins, obviously the first one, the first one could be at the very end, which would be easy, but it's not. So according to the directions, I need to have 1/4 of an inch and 4 inches and 8 inches for each fin. I also do have the launch lug, which I should measure as well, and the launch lug is going to go at 8 inches as well. So that's convenient. So for each of these lines, I need to, this is actually a pretty big tube, so kind of hard to mark. Anyway, I need to have it at 1/4 of an inch, which is about here. And this one, since we're putting multiple fins on, we definitely want this to be as accurate as possible. So we'll probably get another pencil, because that one doesn't really want to write very much. So there's 1/4 of an inch and 4 inches and 8 inches. Incidentally, because I only had this one mark, because the line marking guide only has one arrow, I started when I was drawing in the tube. I started here just with my pencil to make sure that my line was going to be lined up with my mark, and then I extended it both upwards and downwards. And that seems to have done pretty well. I did not mark the entirety of the tube because I don't actually need to. I only need this to go up to 8 inches. So this may not be riveting, viewing, but it's got to be done, and it's not too time consuming. Okay, here's the launch lug. I need to mark it 8 for that, and here's the last line, 8, 4 1/4. All right, now it's time to start gluing. Now I'm not going to glue all these on camera. I think one is probably good, at least to start, but again, I'm starting with the big ones. They go at the very end. Now, these are trapezoidal, and it looks like, for math people out there, it looks like an isosceles trapezoid. These two fins seem to be about the same. I don't think that's actually the case, truth be told, but more importantly, there is a right way and a wrong way to put these on, and we're going to use the grain to tell us which. So the grain should be, oh, that was interesting. I have rockets back there. One of them just randomly fell over. Anyway, the grain should be pointing kind of away from the rocket and away and down. So this is the front, this is the back. We're going to use our usual technique. I'm going to apply some glue. Not much, because remember, the more glue you put on, the longer you're going to have to wait for it to set. And the extra glue isn't really the deciding factor here. We don't need more. All right, so we're going to let that set for 30 seconds or so. The extra bit of glue is going to be more of a determining factor in how strong this is, plus the fillet that we're going to put on, than anything else, than the initial bit of glue anyway. So we'll let this sit until we've run off about 30 seconds. That's probably pretty good. And again, just a wee bit more. We do not need a lot more. And we're going to spread that out because that seems a little on the gloppy side as well. There we go. All right, I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this. Now I'm going to, since this isn't right at the edge, I'm going to position the edge, the corner of the fin, the back corner, right at my mark. And I'm going to kind of roll it forward. And it looks like, I mean, you could probably see it better than I can at the moment, but it looks like it's in reasonably good position. It's not hard. I mean, it's probably not very straight, but we'll worry about that in a minute. The back end is where it's supposed to be, and it looks generally like it's in line with the line that I drew, which is also good. So I'm just going to hold this for, about 30 seconds until I'm done talking, and then we will check on an alignment. We will do that with the 4 other first fins. And again, I'm not going to demonstrate all of that for the time being. How to look down. Looking down the barrel of the tube, for me, it looks pretty decent. I'm going to try to get rid of that extra glue smear in there with my finger. Of course, we're going to put a fillet over top of that, so it's not really a big deal. But there we go. And just as importantly now, I want to check to see that the fin is centered on my line, and it does. It looks pretty good. Now, I want this to set for a couple minutes, 2 or 3 before I put the next one on. I'm going to pause 2 or 3 minutes between each one because the real pain of this is the glue holds pretty well when it's either straight up and down, like this, so it's pointed up or it's pointed down, but it does not like to be at a right angle or parallel with my table. That's when they all tend to fall off. So we'll make sure this is all set. For the time being, I can lay this flat and just kind of prop it with something, but eventually, one thing I tend to do is, here's a bottle of sealant. I can usually do a decent job of just putting the rocket on top like this. Now, when you get 3 fins on, or when the air condition is blowing a lot, this can be kind of problematic, so we don't want to leave this long term. But this is a reasonable way to hold things. So in any event, right now, I am again going to pause things so I can put on the other 3 rear fins, biggest fins, and then we will pop back to put on at least one of the second fins. You can see how I check for alignments. So I will be back in a bit. Okay, so the 4 fins, the 4 back fins anyway, are attached like so. And to check that they were reasonably well aligned, I both did my vertical test against the grid I have here on my cutting pad, which is nice, and against this old friend, the tool that we used in our Blue Origin New Shepard construction. Now, this doesn't fit quite right against the tube, but it does, at least we can put it in here to check to see that we've got the angles right, more or less. So it's not going to fit flush against the tube, but it should push up against both sides of the fin, which everything looks good, so I'm pleased with that. Now, I'm not going to put fillets on until everything's done. I'm going to continue with my construction on the fins. Now, these fins have been sitting for a while, which is to say maybe 10 minutes. So the glue is not completely dry. It's dry-ish, but it's not completely dried. So I need to be careful because I'm probably going to not knock them off at this point, but I could definitely bump them and misalign them, which is, I mean, I don't know, it might actually be worse at this point because if I bump one off completely, I'd have to reattach it from scratch, and I would, make sure the alignment was right. So in any event, the next fin that I need to put on are these things. These are going at my 4-inch mark, and again, I'm not going to do all of these. I'm probably going to do one of each and then call it. So these, they're going to glue them on just like I have been gluing everything else on. So same process. I need to clean my glue nozzle there. That came out kind of messily. These at least have a very obvious forward and backward, so that's a good thing. Unlike the last ones, which kind of had to think about a little bit to make sure that I wasn't putting them on the wrong way. I had a little too much glue on there from my kind of dirty nozzle here on my glue bottle. So I took that off. That's fine. As per usual, we're going to let it sit for 30 seconds or so while I yammer on, put the second layer of glue on, and then we should be in pretty good shape to attach. These are a bit thinner balsa stock than the last one, I think. So, yeah, which is kind of weird because it even seems like it's a little bit thinner than the front fins. Just remember, this was weird looking, kind of chewed up balsa, which I wasn't pleased with. But in any event, on goes the next bit of glue. That's probably more than I wanted, but whatever. We'll just spread it out. Oops, that was too much removal. There we go. Okay, time to attach. I will say that this manner of shock cord attachment there are a lot of benefits to it. It is way stronger than the paper Estes approach. But it is kind of annoying because it gets in the way and we got some glue on it and it's hard to fix should the anything inside the tube get damaged. Anyway, so for the most part, when I already have fins on, I don't try to attach this by holding it in air like I'm going to try here. I put it on my lap and I have the fins sticking off to the right side because I'm right-handed, and it seems to be easy for me to do it that way. That's not really an option here, unfortunately, so I'm going to kind of be doing this in air, trying not to bump this fin in particular, which is still, I mean, it's probably not going to get knocked over, but still, I don't want to mess with it. So, in any event, lining up this fin with the back part of the mark that I drew, making sure that everything is aligned. I'm going to hold it here for a good 15 seconds or so while I talk, and then we will check for alignment. It should, provided I didn't really jostle things when I attached it, when I rolled it forward, it should be in line with the line, which is to say the front and the back should be the fin itself should be evenly distributed across the line. But we really want to check to make sure that our fins are aligned with themselves. So this one and this one are in line. So I'll get rid of a little bit of excess glue, and then we will check for alignment. So the easiest way to do this is just hold the rocket and look down the barrel and then nudge one of the fins, in this case the front fin, whoops, that was too far, until I can only see one. So to look at it your way, you want to make sure the two fins are lined up with each other, so that basically when you're looking down, you only see the one. That looks pretty good, I think. I got a little, a little glue on my finger, and I've since transferred it to the back of the rocket. That's annoying, but what are you going to do? In any event, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. I think I might have nudged this back one a little bit too, so I'll check it quickly. All right, there we go. So that looks decent. Again, I have so much stuff going on here, so many fins that I can't really put it down. So I'm going to put it vertically like this, and I'm going to attach this last little one because these really aren't going to get in anybody's way. And really, I put all four on the back first so I could have an alignment guide, and I wanted to check their alignment with each other more than anything else. Now that those are on and static, I don't need to worry about this. Ooh, boy, the air conditioner started up there. That was fun. Anyway, I don't need to worry about this fin being aligned with these other three because I can check that by making sure that it's aligned with the ones that I've already got on the rocket. So the time pressure of making sure that the glue sets on this or doesn't set on this before the other three are attached is basically gone. So attaching this, a little bit of glue. There we go. And again, move that out of the way. I would be doing this on my lap if I weren't filming it. That's okay. These, of course, again, you want to have the grain pointing upwards toward the nose or swept away from the rocket body, as the case may be. We'll check for alignment later, but That looks pretty good lined up. These ones are so small, they have so little mass and so much surface area to attach to the fin that they go on pretty easily, which is nice. So I'm going to check my alignment here. These ones, they're also a little harder to line up because they're stubby. So there's a little less, it's a little less obvious if they are misaligned. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the glue here because that was kind of getting in the way as I was, yeah, this little blob back here. All right, there we go. Checking then my alignment. Looks like the front one, or the middle one, it didn't shift. I thought it might have there for a second, so we're just going to nudge this one. There we go. By the way, having a fin not at the back of the rocket actually makes the rocket significantly less stable, which is weird. You'd think having more fins would be better, but the more fins you have, especially the farther up the rocket you go, it brings the center of pressure this way, and you don't want that to go upwards too much. You want the center of mass with the motor in it to be ahead of the center of pressure. So frequently we have to put in nose cone weight to offset that, but I don't think that's going to be the case for this rocket. Anyway, that looks pretty well taken care of. I need to put the launch lug here, but before I do that, I'm going to put the other fins on, and you don't need to see that. So that pretty much wraps up this episode. I'm going to hang on to this so it doesn't get blown over by my air conditioner, which has gone kind of rogue here. But in any event, that'll wrap it up for this segment. Next segment, we have finishing, I guess, to do. And there is some extra finishing because we actually have to build the parachute, which is kind of annoying, but we'll manage somehow. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.